I saw someone else post a story about Ireland here, so it felt right to post something that happened to my friend and I. My bestie and I are both from London, but her family on her dad's side is from Ireland, so she goes there every summer for the entirety. Last summer I went to go and stay with her for 2 weeks at her granddad's house. Her granddad lives in rural Ireland, like rural. The nearest town is at least a 40-minute drive away, and his house is the only building for like a 5 kilometer stretch. It backs onto a massive forest and faces onto a lake. It's really quite beautiful, but that's beyond the point for this story. My best friend's granddad, brother, aunt, and dad were all going to the pub one evening. They invited us along, which was of course a tempting offer, but we declined as we were excited at the prospect of having the house to ourselves, something that doesn't happen a lot given that we're teenagers. So we decided to have a chill evening in and basically play house. Of course, if you've been to Ireland, you know that a quick pint is anything but quick, and our family had been gone for some time by this point, as it was now approaching 10 p.m. We were watching a movie in our living room when we heard a soft knock on the door. We reckoned that maybe it was her family who had forgotten their key, so we got up to go answer. Now, her granddad's front door led into the conservatory, which then led to the actual front door of the house, so we made it to the conservatory door expecting her family. But instead, there was a strange man at the door. Slightly confused at this, we kind of just looked at him, waiting for him to say something, during which time I had the opportunity to take in his appearance. There was something off about him, to say the least. He looked crazed, bizarrely alert, and of course, slightly scary. I can't quite put it into words, but if you've ever come across somebody that just left you feeling a bad vibe, then you know what I'm talking about. Without much of an introduction, this man said that his car had broken down and he needed to use the phone to call someone to come pick him up. I looked out the window, but I couldn't see a car at all. I said something to the effect of, "Where's your car?" He responded by explaining that he had broken down about 30 minutes down the road and had walked until he found a house that looked like someone was in it. Given that, as I explained prior, my friend's granddad lived in a fairly remote area, so this was all plausible. With slight hesitation, my friend passed him her phone and said he could call who he needed to call and then wait on the doorstep. He didn't accept the offer though. Instead, he just kind of ignored it and started asking if there were any adults or parents in the house. I wanted to give this man the benefit of the doubt and assume that he was asking this as maybe he felt more comfortable sharing his predicament with adults rather than 2 teenage girls. We didn't know if we should tell him that we were there alone or not, because we would usually know better. But given the situation, we explained that family was out and they may be back soon. He started to look past us and into the house, then he began to insist that we let him in, as he wanted to use a landline. At this point, we were more than suspicious, because if he wanted to call someone, why not just use my friend's cell phone? This guy was erratic, continuously insisting that we let him in. At that point, my friend said either use her mobile or leave, but beyond that, there was nothing more we could do for him. He again insisted that he come into the house, so we just shut the door on him. We locked it, and then locked the door to the actual house. A bit sketched out from this, we sat in our living room trying to peep out the window and see if he'd gone. The guy lingered for a bit, looking directly into the windows of the house, maybe looking for a way in or maybe just trying to make sense of the situation. But then we saw him leave, although we couldn't make out what direction he went in. To add just a little bit more fear fuel to the fire, my friend explained that the nearby town was pretty small and everyone in the area pretty much knew one another. But she had never seen this man in her life, which scared her as she was personally acquainted with most of the town by now. We contemplated calling her dad, but since it had been about 30 minutes with no disruption, we just left it and continued on with our night. Well, later on, her dog was getting restless and her family was still out, so we let the pup into the back garden. After about 5 minutes of roaming around out there, we heard her barking, but it was too dark to see what she was barking at. So we put it down to it being more than likely a goat, because that was usually the case out here. We called her in and went about our night. We realized her family probably wouldn't be back until the early hours of the morning, and instead of waiting for them, we decided to head up to bed. As my friend went up the stairs, I went to the kitchen, which is at the back of the house, to get us some water, when I heard someone shaking the handle of the back door trying to get in. The thing is, this is a really old house, so I didn't exactly put all my faith in the door holding up against the weight of what I suspected to be a grown man trying to get in. I screamed bloody murder and my friend ran down the stairs. At this point, whoever this was at the back door was now banging on it like his life depended on it. And I swear to God, I felt my heart fall straight out of my arsehole. My friend shouted back that she was going to call the police, which at that moment was a lie because she had taken both of our phones upstairs. But what else does one yell in that situation? She thought it may deter him. Luckily, this seemed to scare him off. The banging stopped and we heard footsteps move farther and farther away until we couldn't hear them anymore. Now, standing in the kitchen, frozen in fear, we couldn't even speak to each other. A matter of moments later, we heard the front door open and we pretty much thought that was it for us. Whoever it was had clearly gone around the front and figured out a way to make it inside. On instinct, my friend grabbed a knife and we hid in the pantry, and I think you can imagine our relief when we heard her dad call out for us, saying that they were back. At that point, we were absolutely in a tizzy, and I'm sure they could tell. So we frantically asked them, "Did you see a broken down car on your way home?" When they responded that they didn't see a car and had no idea what we were talking about, we did our best to relay the happenings of the evening. Best friend's aunt did what she could to console us and let us know that everything was all right now, but her dad and brother are more action-oriented. So they went searching for whoever had just been trying to get into the house. They left for about 20 minutes or so, and when they returned, they didn't have the most settling of news. They didn't find any evidence that a car had been broken down anywhere near the property. But when searching through the garden, her brother had found about 10 cigarette butts in close concentration, no more than 15 yards from the back door, in a spot where, if you looked up at the house, it would give you a clear view right in through the kitchen window. Whoever had been out there before had likely been watching the house for hours. I think that when we turned the lights off to head to bed, he took that as his opportunity to try and get inside. Me going to the kitchen and catching him in the act likely surprised him, but it wasn't going to stop him until my friend yelled out the word police. I still had about 6 days left on this trip, but I don't think I was comfortable at any point until I got back home to London. I love my friend with all of my heart, but I probably won't be venturing back to Ireland with her next summer. Story 2. This is my first post here, and as far as background information, there's a few things I want to give you right off the rip. I'm a 29-year-old who's currently transitioning from male to female. I typically present as masculine for work-related things like rideshare, which this story is mainly about. Basically, this means I don't generally get tilted by people calling me he or him because, well, I don't pass. Anyway, so I drive for both apps, Uber and Lyft, and your girl usually doesn't have any problems. The riders are generally pretty nice or quiet, and honestly, I enjoy giving rides. Not a lot of money to be had, but enough in between paychecks at my big girl job to be enjoyable to do when I can. However, as I was cruising off from a ride, I get a new request that's gonna pay about $35. Not uncommon, but sometimes that means the destination's gonna be fair as shit. This one was only 45 minutes away, so that's not too bad. Plus, money. So I'm driving to the pickup pin, and it's a decently fancy Japanese grill that shares the parking lot with a kind of rundown cannabis dispensary. I park out of the way of traffic and hit arrive. 2 minutes, nobody. 3 minutes, somebody finally walks up and she gets to my door. Here's where the scary shit starts. She doesn't immediately open the door. She reaches for the handle, sure, but she then proceeds to lean completely forward against my rear passenger door and laugh. She's laughing into the body paint. Then she bends all the way backwards to the point that her legs are almost at a 45-degree angle with her torso. She then opens the door, and apparently my last rider left something in the back seat. This woman stops laughing and tones it down to a giggle. I hit her with a, "Hi, are you?" before saying her name in my forced masculine voice. In a creepily cutesy voice, she replies, "Yeah, that'd be me." "Someone didn't drop a thing in your back seat, Mr. Uberman. I noticed what she's referring to and asked to keep it in the front seat with me so I can return it later." "Oh damn, guess she must have left it on accident." She's staring not at me but in the rearview mirror and says, "Ain't you gonna call her?" I tell her I'll do it when a request comes in to return it, like I usually do. Now, quick aside to explain the characterization of this woman that I've made so far. I'm not going out of my way to be any kind of prejudiced. She legitimately spoke this way. And beyond just a country vernacular, she spoke as if she couldn't read very well. As someone who's done volunteer work with people with traumatic mental disorders or neurodivergence, I try my best to not be annoyed or be any type of bitch in these situations. Anyway, we pull off heading towards our destination pin 45 minutes away. First red flag because the others so far could just be the rider being weird or drunk. She asked me to stop at a UPS store on our way to her destination. No big deal, right? Here's the issue. She didn't specify which one, just the UPS store. As I open up Google Maps to find the nearest one, she says, "Oh, you don't have to, but I have to get my friend out of jail. If I don't get this package, he gonna be there overnight." "Oh," I said, not getting what the package had to do with jail, but playing along. "Well, it's just, he gonna be there all night if we don't get him out. He gonna kill somebody, he's in jail for killing." What the fuck? When I freak out visibly but not audibly, she smiles and says, "Oh, we don't have to go there. Let's keep going back on the road. I know you Uber guys gotta make your money. Yeah, Uber drivers don't get a lot of money, do they? Weird pivot, but we keep going." I nervous laugh and say, "Yeah, but I don't mind if you need me to stop." Wrong move. She continues to stare at me from the rear view every time I glance back. We're on the highway before she says anything else. "I like this car." "What car is this?" I tell her. "Oh, it's nice. You like it? You like this car?" I nod and say, "Oh yeah, it's a nice car." Then she turns to the empty seat next to her and starts arguing with the air. "No, it's his car." "No, I don't think he wants to do that." "Stop it." I ask, "Everything okay?" "Oh, my friend just says this car is nice." "Oh," I say, I'm a bit freaked out, but it's whatever. People in this world are weird, and it's not that unusual for a grown woman to have imaginary friends. "Mr. Uberman, do you think it's okay to steal if you have to?" I just shrug and go, "I mean, what do you mean? Like, if I was in a grocery store and wanted bread, I should be able to take it, right? Especially if I work there." I shrug again, because I ain't no thief, it's because I need it. She turns around in her seat and yells at my trunk, "I got money, Mr. Uberman. I got a job, so I got money." She's getting visually more agitated, then without breaking stride and still facing the trunk, she says, "What? No, you tell her to simmer down now. He's a nice man." And goes on this long rant about how she's not a vagabond and she's got a job, so she ain't poor, but that poor people like to pretend they're not poor. Switching at times from dialogue with the trunk to the seat next to her. Eventually she smirks, and it's kind of off-putting because I can see that this woman is missing about 70% of her teeth. Now, do I necessarily care if someone's talking to themselves in a Lyft ride? No, I don't judge people. Life's hard. But when her imaginary friends start to sound like they want me to die, yeah, that I do mind. I don't necessarily like being alive, but I'm not going to let someone else decide that for me. Then I'm driving along and keeping to myself. She smirks in the rear view again and says in this scarily soft voice, "Aren't you sleepy? Are you hungry, honey? They say you're real sleepy. Do you like boba?" I'm now gripping the steering wheel and avoiding all eye contact. "Oh no, I'm okay. Thanks for the offer though. I'll pay if we stop," she says in her sing-song voice from earlier. Let's stop. Maybe you could even pull over and nap for a bit. She's baring all her teeth at this point, and I'm internally screaming that I want this ride to be over ASAP. But $35 is 35. So we keep driving. Well, you killed her, so it is what it is. She says this randomly to the trunk, so new intel, she's talking to somebody about dead people. At this point, I'm even more apt not to stop. We get to a stop sign and she stares at the headrest and leans forward. Oh, I forgot to mention that all of this is happening while she's sitting directly behind me. She leans forward and sticks out one bony finger, poking my shoulder. "How does your body feel, Mr. Uberman, huh? You sure you don't want to get something to eat? I could feed you if you just pull over somewhere." So that's like the 10th time she's tried to get me to stop. She then says, "He's sleepy, ain't he? He gonna kill someone if he don't get some sleep. Someone gonna die. He got two choices he choose." I ask, "Or who's gonna kill someone?" At this point, she looks away and gets an angry face. Nothing. No one. So eventually, after being death stared at and her imaginary ghost friends talking about robbing or killing me, we get to her destination and she hops out. "Thank you for being so patient, Mr. Uberman. Make sure you don't forget to eat," she says, with the deliberate pauses and everything. Then she comes around to my window, smiles directly up against the glass. After this, I drive straight home and don't drive for Lyft for a week. Again, I enjoy driving, and I'm no stranger to mental illness, but there's something just so incredibly unsettling about having that in your car while you're just trying to make a buck. My sanctity of mind and my own safety is worth far more than any $35 ride. What's wild is that since this has happened, I've gotten prompts to pick her up 2 additional times. I've passed each time, and if she pops up for another, I'll certainly be passing a third.